Hello and welcome everyone to this session on most important images from surgery for FMG. My name is Dr. Janvi. I am the anesthesia educator on Unacademy and I welcome you all for this short yet extremely informative session. Now, we all know that image-based questions are the current rage during the exams. So they are asking a lot of image-based questions. So what I have done is I have compiled all the important images in surgery that you need to know. There are about 45 images that we will be discussing today very quickly so that you can save your time. Make sure that you watch this video at 1.5 to 2x the speed and just go through the images. I'm sure most of you will know most of them. However, when they come suddenly in the exam, because we are nervous, we forget about it. So as a result of it, you may lose out on your important marks. So make sure that you just go through these images very quickly for the exam and it's useful for you guys. I'm a PLUS verified educator. I have completed my MBBS MD in anesthesiology and I'm a gold medalist in anesthesia. This is the Telegram channel Let's Crack NEET PG, where you guys can get the links to all our classes. So if you want any link to any of the classes that we take, they are all free. They are on YouTube as well as on the Unacademy platform. You can watch it over here. The Plus subscription on Unacademy will give you access to live and recorded classes. You can learn from India's top educators and you can compete in live tests and quizzes. You can access our question bank with 25,000 plus questions, and for those who buy 1 year and above subscription, you will even get printed notes. The Iconic subscription is a partnership between Unacademy and PrepLadder, which helps you get the live lectures of Unacademy along with the video lectures of PrepLadder. And these are a few of our subscription plans that we have. If before subscribing you want to check how Unacademy is, you can see our special classes. So they are free, they are present on the platform, and you will see that they have polls for the learners. It's a completely live class. You can even speak to us during the class through the raise a hand option, and at the end of the class you can get lecture notes which will be in the PDF format. We also have a question bank which has about 25,000 plus high yield questions, and these are all our NEET PG toppers from 2021. So you can see all of them. Now, if you buy the Plus subscription, you guys will be able to go through a lot of courses. If you want to win the Plus subscription, we have a combat test on the 28th of November. So here you can win Amazon vouchers worth 20,000 rupees, and you can also win a free subscription of Unacademy. These are all the plus batches that are going on right now. So in our plus batches, we have the Focus FMG 2022 comprehensive batch. We also have batches for the 2023 exam appearing batch. So the Target NEET PG 2022 and the Target Next Integrated 2023 batch. And if you guys would like to buy the Unacademy subscription, you can go through the subscription plans, and we have many offers like 2 years plus 4 months free, 12 months plus 2 months free. And if you want any additional offer, so for that you can use my code. So this is my code Dr. Janvi Life, and this code will give you an extra 10% off on your subscription value. So with all this, I hope that you guys are all very energized in order to buy the Unacademy subscription. On the 28th of November, remember, I'm going to be taking plus classes for all of you. So it is a comprehensive course on anesthesia. It's a 6-hour straight off course in anesthesia. So we'll start from 7 o'clock in the morning, and by afternoon we will be done with full revision of anesthesia. So you guys are welcome to join me. You can buy the plus subscription for that. So let's begin with our class for today. So this is the first image that we have, and this is something that they keep asking in the exam again and again, and that is the different types of crystals in the urine and what are the stones associated with them. All right, so the first crystal that you can see over here is your dumbbell shaped crystal. Now this dumbbell shaped crystal is seen in which stones? It is seen in calcium oxalate monohydrate stones. Okay, now how do we remember this? So I'll give you an easy mnemonic to remember it. whenever you are single, okay, you're mono or you're single, you will try to make a good body for yourself so that the opposite sex people get attracted to you. Okay, so if the most of the boys we see in the gym pumping up iron and making a good body with dumbbells because they are single or they are mono. Okay, so that's how you can remember calcium oxalate monohydrate stones are dumbbell shape. Now, the next kind of stones that we have or the crystals that we have are envelope shaped crystals. So, envelope shaped crystals are seen in calcium oxalate dihydrate stones. Okay. Now, here you can remember it as when you get married. First, you were single, now you're getting married, so you're becoming di. So, when you are getting married, people will give you money as gift. Okay, so money is given in envelopes during marriage. So that's how you can remember when you're getting married, you get money in envelopes during the marriage. Okay, the third type of stones that we have are your needle shaped stones or prismatic stones. Okay, so these are your needle shaped stones and they look like this, like needles, and these are nothing but uric acid stones. Okay, so your uric acid stones are needle shaped. How do you remember this? If you have excess uric acid in your body, you must be knowing that you get a condition which is called as gout. Okay, so in gout, you have needle shaped crystals that are deposited in your joints, small joints, especially in the first thumb and in the big toe. Okay, so those are your uric acid crystals. All right. Other than that, we also have some other crystals that are present. So you have coffin lid shaped crystals. I'll just write it over here. So these are coffin lid shaped crystals. So those are seen in struvite stones. Struvite stones are also called as triple phosphate stones. Okay. So how do you remember this? Initially you were mono, so you were using dumbbells. Then you became di, you got envelope of money during marriage. And then when you have a child, after that there is nothing left in life. You only look forward to your death. Okay, so you have coffin lid shaped crystals when you become triple. All right. So those are the different types of stones that you need to know and the crystals that you need to know. And the one last crystal that you need to know is a hexagonal shaped crystal. Okay, so a hexagonal shaped crystal is seen in cystine stones. All right, so these are all the important crystals and the stones that are seen in case of urology. You should be knowing all of them. It's very, very important. They keep asking questions on this again and again during the exam. All right, so now let's move on to our next image. So if you have a look at this image, you see an old man who otherwise seems fine, but when he raises his hands, you can see that his face is becoming plethoric and there is a lot of facial edema and swelling and redness. So can you guys tell me what is this sign and in which condition do you see this sign? Anyone? Okay, absolutely correct. So this is called as your Pemberton sign. Okay. Now, what is Pemberton sign? So, Pemberton sign is seen in a condition called as retrosternal goiter. Now, mostly your goiter is a swelling in the neck. Okay. Many a times what happens is your goiter will extend down and it will extend into the thoracic cavity. So this one goes behind the sternum. The enlarged goiter goes behind the sternum. So this is called as a retrosternal goiter. So in the clinical case scenario, they will give you a situation in which they will say there is a neck swelling, the lower border of which is not palpable. Okay, so neck swelling, lower border not palpable because lower border of the swelling is going behind the sternum. So you cannot palpate the lower end of the swelling. All right. Now what happens in case of retrosternal goiter is when you elevate your hands up, okay, so the goiterous mass that is there, the swelling that is there, it will come and it will obstruct the thoracic inlet. Okay, so when it obstructs the thoracic inlet, all the veins and the lymphatics, everything that is draining into the thorax, that will get compressed. So what will you get in that case? You will get venous congestion. So all the veins that are draining the face will get completely obstructed, and because of that your face will become very big, red and plethoric. Okay, so now this patient can even have an episode of syncope. That's why this Pemberton sign or this Pemberton's test is not very safe to be done as an OPD procedure. Okay, so if they ask you in the exam, what is this sign? It is called as Pemberton sign. Where is it seen? It's seen in retrosternal goiter. Okay. All right. Moving on to our next image. So this is a classical image. Can you identify what is it? What are these bodies called as specifically? Okay. So if you look at this looks like an onion peel appearance. Correct? This looks like an onion peel appearance. These are called as Samoma bodies. Okay. Now these Samoma bodies are seen in many conditions. So you need to know a few conditions in which you see Samoma bodies. So can you guys tell me any? So in the ovary, you have serous cyst adenoma of the ovary. Then you have papillary carcinoma in the kidney. So you have the papillary variant of RCC. Then you have papillary carcinoma of the thyroid. And the fourth condition in which you can see this is in meningioma. Okay. So these are all the places where you will be able to see your Samoma bodies. The second thing that you need to know is if Samoma bodies are seen along with orphan aniline nuclei. What is orphan aniline nuclei? You will see empty cells. Okay, so there will be nothing in the cells. Just like there is a cartoon called as Orphan Annie Eye, in that her eyes are completely empty. Okay, so the cell will be empty, the nucleolar cytoplasm, everything will be absent. So that is called as Orphan Annie Eye nuclei. So if you see Samoma bodies plus orphan Annie nuclei, that will point towards the answer that this is papillary CA thyroid. Okay. Otherwise, Samoma bodies are seen in many conditions. So it is not very diagnostic for one particular condition. Okay. Moving on to our next image now. So can you guys identify this image for me? So let me give you the history of this patient. He is a chronic tobacco chewer and he comes to you for a normal hernia surgery. So before that, you do a pre-anesthesia evaluation and you see that you ask him for his airway examination. So you see that his mouth opening is restricted. Okay, so he has reduced mouth opening. He has restricted mouth opening or he has reduced mouth opening. So now this will be seen in what case? Reduced mouth opening or restricted mouth opening in a chronic tobacco chewer. Absolutely correct. So this is seen in case of submucous fibrosis. Okay, what is submucous fibrosis? So whenever you have tobacco chewers, they keep that ball of tobacco on the side of the mouth, mostly along the cheek. Okay, on the inside of the cheek. So that will continuously irritate the buccal mucosa and that will lead to formation of fibrous scar tissue. Okay, so because of the fibrous scar tissue, there will be reduction in the mouth opening. Now, how do you treat this? You can give intralesional triamcinolone acetate. That is a steroid. So you can give intralesional triamcinolone acetate. The other thing that you can give in this case, just remember that this is a pre-malignant lesion. Okay, so this can lead to malignancy called as squamous cell carcinoma. They also ask this in the exam, what is the most common malignancy seen in chronic tobacco chewers in the oral cavity? So that is your squamous cell carcinoma. All right. Okay. Now moving on to the next picture. So this is a patient and he says that he has dysphagia on swallowing, difficulty in swallowing liquids and solids. Okay. Now along with this, when you investigate this patient, the patient also has iron deficiency anemia. Along with iron deficiency anemia, this patient also has angular stomatitis. Okay, so at the angle of the mouth, you will see there will be small lesions. So stoma means mouth and angular means angle of the mouth. Okay, so this patient also has angular stomatitis. So in a patient with dysphagia, what are you seeing over here? You're seeing on the esophagoscopy that there is presence of a esophageal web. Okay, so there is an esophageal web, there is iron deficiency anemia, and there is angular stomatitis. So now you have to put the three of them together and tell me what exactly is the syndrome in this case. Any idea what it could be? Yes, absolutely correct. So this is Plummer-Vinson syndrome. This is Plummer-Vinson syndrome. All right. Okay. Moving on to our next image now. So this is, identify this image, and yeah. So there is a growth on the angle of the tongue. You can see on the margin of the tongue there is a growth, and this growth is very proliferative. So this is mostly CA tongue. Why am I asking you to identify this? Because CA tongue is the most common oral cavity cancer in the world. Okay, in the world. That's very important to remember, because many a times in the exam they ask you what is the most common oral cavity cancer in India. So please don't mark the answer as CA tongue in that case. The answer is CA buccal mucosa. Okay. So CA buccal mucosa is the most common cause of oral cavity cancer in the world, and that is due to underlying tobacco chewing, and CA tongue is the most common oral cavity cancer in the world. All right. So why are we asking you about all these cancers? Because you need to know the associated flaps that are used for the reconstruction of these cancers. Okay, so someone with a CA mandible or someone with a CA buccal mucosa, once you remove the tumor, you also remove normal tissue. So to replace the normal tissue, to replace the defect, to replace the gap, you have to take flaps. Okay, so these flaps are from different places. So they may give you a picture of the flap and ask you to identify the flap. So first flap that I need you guys to identify is the flap taken from this area. So can anyone identify what is this area and what is the name of the flap? Okay, so this muscle that you see that is overlying your breast, this is your pectoralis major muscle, correct? And this flap is called as PMMC flap. So what is the full form of PMMC? It is pectoralis major myocutaneous flap. Okay, so this is your pectoralis major myocutaneous flap, and this is often used in case of CA oral cavity lesions. Whenever you remove the jaw, the mandible, in that case, to replace the defect, you will take a flap from the pectoralis major, okay, and cover this area. All right, so similarly, we have another flap that you take from the area of the shoulder. So instead of taking just from the pectoralis major area, you can take from the shoulder also. So that is called as your DP flap. Okay. So any idea what is a DP flap? Full form of DP flap? So DP flap is nothing but a deltopectoral flap. Okay. So this deltopectoral flap, it is arising from the deltoid muscle and the pectoralis major muscle. Okay. So you're getting a good bulk of the muscle to cover up the gap. Now the next flap that we have is taken from the, as you can see in the picture over here, from the rectus abdominis muscle. Okay, so this is your rectus abdominis muscle right in front of the abdomen, along the above and below the umbilicus. So this is the muscle that is responsible for formation of your six pack. So we can take a little bit of this muscle also to form a flap. So the name of that flap is tram flap. Okay. Now this tram flap is used in case of CA breast. Okay, so whenever you have a mastectomy done, if you have a radical mastectomy done, the entire breast along with its surrounding tissue is removed and the axilla is cleared. to fill up that defect, because it may look very asymmetrical to not have a breast on one side. So to fill up the defect, you can put a flap over there, which is called as a tram flap. Okay, so the full form of a tram flap is transverse rectus abdominis flap. Okay, and there is another very important and common flap that is used in case of CA breast, and that is your LD flap. Okay, so what is your LD flap? It is taken from the back, that is your latissimus dorsi flap. Okay, so these are all the flaps that are used for reconstruction. You should be knowing all of them. So if you ask me, ma'am, which ones are the important ones to remember? First PMMC flap is very important. It is used in most of the oral cavity cancer surgeries. Then your deltopectoral flap, and in CA breast, LD flap is the one that is most commonly used, and tram flap is next. All right. Okay. Now this one has been asked many times in the exam, so you need to identify the swelling and also give me the treatment of the same. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of the details of the swelling. It's a fluctuant swelling, and when you shine light through it, the light can pass through it. So trans illumination is positive in this case. Trans illumination test is positive. Okay, and you have to tell me where does it arise from. So you can see that it is arising from the lower part of the tongue. Okay, so what are the glands on the lower part of the tongue? So they are your sublingual glands. Okay, now these sublingual glands, basically if they get blocked, because of the blockage of the sublingual glands, you will have collection of mucus. Okay, now this mucus, when it gets collected, it is called as a mucus extravasation cyst. Okay, so your sublingual glands, when they get blocked, it is called as a mucus extravasation cyst, called as ranula. So this is nothing but your ranula. What is the treatment for a ranula? It's very easy. You have to do a procedure called as marsupialization of the cyst. Okay, in marsupialization of the cyst, you will take an incision, cruciate incision over the cyst, and you will open up the entire cystic cavity. You will drain all the contents of the cystic cavity, and you will make sure that the walls of the cystic cavity don't join together, otherwise the cyst can form again. Okay, so that is called as marsupialization of the cyst. All right. Okay, moving on to our next photo. This has been asked many times in the exam, but they give very different options. So they will give you a swelling like this, and they will ask you, what do you think it is? So is it pleomorphic adenoma of the parotid, or is it a salivary gland tumor, or is it a neck lymph node which has enlarged? So they will give you many different types of anatomical considerations. Okay, so here you have to identify what exactly is happening. How do you identify whether this is a lymph node, or whether this is a parotid gland, or whether this is a submandibular salivary gland? So there is something which is very simple and very classical that you get in this. So whenever the ear is pushed up, you can see over here the ear is pushed up. So if the ear is pushed up, that means this is a parotid gland swelling. Okay, so what is the most common parotid gland swelling that you see? It is nothing but pleomorphic adenoma. Okay, now you need to know what is the treatment for this pleomorphic adenoma, what is the investigation of choice. So just remember, whenever you see that the ear is pushed up by the swelling, go ahead and mark the answer as pleomorphic adenoma of the parotid. Okay, what is the investigation of choice? Investigation of choice is FNAC. Okay, and it is a benign swelling, so the treatment will be a superficial parotidectomy. All right. Okay, moving on to our next picture. So this is some of the instruments that they ask again and again in the exam. Since I'm telling you, we have to do an FNAC for this tumor, that mass. So you should be knowing these two instruments. Okay, so anyone, can you identify these two instruments for me? They are used for taking samples of tumors only. Alright, so the first one that you can see over here, this is called as a true cut biopsy needle. The other name is a core biopsy needle. Okay, it's a true cut biopsy needle or a core biopsy needle. Then they ask you in the exam, this biopsy needle is used for taking biopsy from which organs? So it is used for taking biopsy from breast, it is used for taking biopsy from prostate. Alright. On the other hand, you have this other rounded needle or gun. It is also called as a gun. So this is called as your punch biopsy gun. And your punch biopsy gun is used for taking samples for skin cancer. Okay, so these are your basic biopsy needles and guns that you need to know because they are asked in the exam every other time. Or now looking at this next picture, so can you identify what is the pathology in this and in which condition do we see this? So you can clearly see the problem over here is in the breast, and you can see that the nipple is not normal. It is not everted, it is inverted. Okay. So there is retraction of the nipple. So in which condition do you see the retraction of the nipple? They'll give you an image like this and they will ask you, when does this happen? When do you have retraction of the nipple? Okay, absolutely correct. So if in CA breast, the tumor involves the ligament of Cooper. Okay, the ligament of Cooper helps in supporting the breast and connects it to the axilla. So in CA breast, if the tumor involves the ligament of Cooper, then in that case you will have retraction of the nipple. All right. Okay, moving on to the next breast pathology image. This has come last time only in the FMG exam. Any idea what this could be? Okay, so if you look at the breast over here, it has an appearance like orange peel. Okay, so it looks like the upper or the outer covering of the orange. Okay, so this appearance of the breast is called as the orange appearance. Okay, and in which condition do you see per the orange appearance? Again, you see it in CA breast. Now they will ask you what is the cause of per the orange appearance of the breast. So you should be knowing that there are many lymphatics that drain the breast into the nipple. Okay, so whenever you have CA breast and the tumor cells that are there, they block the subdermal lymphatics. At that time, you get per the orange appearance. Okay, so your blockade of subdermal lymphatics by tumor cells, that will lead to formation of your per the orange appearance. All right. Okay. Moving on to our next picture. Now this identify the investigation that you're seeing over here. It's very obvious that this anatomical picture is of the breast. So this picture, radiological investigation of the breast that you can see is nothing but a mammogram. Okay. So in this mammogram, what are you seeing? You're seeing some calcification. You can see the whitish part over here. It's a calcification and it's a very big calcification. It has a very classical name. It is called as the popcorn calcification. Okay. Now this popcorn calcification, you have to identify it is seen in which condition of the breast. So there is a benign condition of the breast in which you see it, and that is fibroadenoma. Okay, fibroadenoma of the breast, which shows you this benign condition called as popcorn calcification in the breast. All right. Okay. Similarly, another mammogram that you guys can see, here you have to see that the calcifications that you're seeing, they are not like those big popcorn calcifications. Okay, so here you're seeing tiny calcifications. year 1, and you can notice that these tiny calcifications are all having three important things. Okay, one is it has irregular margins. Second is it has spiculations. Okay, so what do you mean by spiculations? If this is the tumor and it has these small spikes that are present on it. Okay, and these are specifically called as microcalcifications. You can see they are very tiny in size, so they are called as microcalcifications. Okay, so in which condition do you see this microcalcifications? You see it in CA breast. So just looking at the picture, you should be able to identify that this is a microcalcification from CA breast. All right. Okay. Now let me give you a background history of this disease. You have to identify this disease for me. So this patient comes to you. She says that she has a 4-month-old child. She has been breastfeeding her child since 4 months, and recently she developed fever and a fluctuant swelling in her breast. So when you examine, this is the swelling that you see. You have to give her treatment for this, and you have to tell her what is the cause of this. Okay, so what do you think it is? Okay, so I think it's very obvious that the picture we have over here is that of a breast abscess. Okay, so this is a breast abscess over here. And what is the most common cause of a breast abscess? So the question can come like a clinical case scenario. This is the condition seen in a breastfeeding mother. What is the most common causative organism? So the most common causative organism is Staphylococcus aureus. Okay. The next question that they can ask is what is the treatment? So the treatment in this case is augmentin, that is the drug of choice, correct? Amoxiclav, amoxicillin clavulanic acid is the treatment of choice. Now this is your medical management. You also have to think of the surgical management. If the pus is not resolving or the mother is having very high fever, then you can do something which is called as IND, incision and drainage. Okay, take a small incision and drain the entire pus out from here. All right. Okay, moving on to our next breast pathology that you need to know. So this is a female. She is 60 years old and she's coming with a firm, continuously enlarging mobile mass that you see over here. Okay, and if you look at the mass, this has a bosselated surface. You can see it is very shiny surface, and on top of the surface you can see dilated veins. So it's a bosselated surface with dilated veins and a firm enlarging mobile mass. So can you guys identify this mass for me? Yes, absolutely correct. This is cystosarcoma phylloides. And this is in fact a malignant tumor, and they can ask you the metastasis from cystosarcoma phylloides can go most commonly to which organ. So just remember that it is malignant to the lungs. Okay, so it can metastasize to the lungs. What is the treatment? The treatment, you have to remove the entire mass. So you have to do a lumpectomy. But if it is recurring and if it looks highly malignant in nature, it is growing a lot in size very quickly, then you will do a radical mastectomy. Okay. All right. Moving on to the next picture. So here you have to see that there is an ulceration of the nipple. Clear ulceration of the nipple is seen. So can you guys identify what is this condition? Ulceration of the nipple or eczema of the nipple? Yes, absolutely correct. So this is a carcinoma in situ of the nipple. So this is called as Paget's disease. Okay, Paget's disease is nothing but carcinoma in situ of the nipple. Now, how do you diagnose this condition? For diagnosis of this condition, you have to do an FNAC, fine needle aspiration cytology. And what will you find on it? You will find specific Paget cells in the epidermis. Okay. Now, how do you treat Paget's disease? Remember, even though it is very small ulcer, it can become malignant in nature. So the ultimate treatment for this is mastectomy only. Okay, next image over here. Can you guys identify this? Okay, so what are you seeing over here? You are seeing a nipple. This is actually a male chest image that we see. And below the nipple, you can see a very obvious fibrous cord-like vein. Okay, so you can see superficial thrombophlebitis of the veins. Now, which is the vein that is involved over here? The most common vein that is involved over here is the lateral thoracic vein. This is the question that they ask in the exam. So I'm going to mark this as a Q. Okay. So what is the name of this disease in which you have superficial thrombophlebitis of the chest vein? This is called as Mondor's disease. Okay. So in Mondor's disease, you have superficial thrombophlebitis or inflammation of the lateral thoracic vein. So how will you treat Mondor's disease? Obviously, it's an inflammation of the vein, so you can give anti-inflammatory medications to settle it. The second thing that you can do is you can restrict the arm movements. So when you restrict the arm movements, the inflammation will reduce on its own. All right. Okay. Moving on to the next image. So this is a male and there is a very obvious bilateral disease over here if you see. Can anyone identify it? Okay, there is a soft fluctuant bilateral breast enlargement. So this is nothing but, if it's bilateral, you should be able to answer this is gynecomastia. Okay, just remember, if it is a hard lesion and if it is unilateral, then you can think of male CA breast. But if it is bilateral and it looks like a soft fluctuant swelling, then this is your gynecomastia. All right. Okay, moving on to our next picture. So this is a classical picture that they ask in the exam. They love specially asking this. So they say that this child was born with this swelling which is connecting his head and the neck. Now, how do you describe this swelling? It is fluctuant swelling. It is compressible in nature. And there is a test which you can do in this that is called as your trans-illumination test. So here the trans-illumination test will be positive. Okay. So what exactly is this lesion? Anyone? Yes, absolutely correct. This lesion is cystic hygroma. So what exactly is your cystic hygroma? Okay. So when your lymphatic system is forming, at that time there will be a maldevelopment of the lymphatic system and there will be a cystic enlargement of the lymphatics. Okay. So there will be a small enlargement of the lymphatics and this is called as a sequestration cyst, because in this area the lymphatics will be developed aberrantly. Okay, so this cystic enlargement then shows up, it's mostly in the neck area. So this is your cystic hygroma. Okay, what is so they can ask you in the exam, what is the most common site of cystic hygroma? So the most common site is the posterior triangle of the neck. You will mostly see it in the posterior triangle of the neck. Okay, then the next question that they ask is, what is the investigation of choice? And that is an ultrasound. Okay, and how do you treat this? So for treatment, you can do something called as aspiration of the cyst and sclerotherapy. Okay, all right, moving on to our next picture. So this patient, he is a diabetic patient, and in him you can see that there is a swelling behind at the nape of the neck. Okay, now if you have to talk about this swelling, it is, you can see that the skin above it has lost its blood supply, so it has become gangrenous. There is ulceration of the skin and this is definitely infected, and he is a long standing diabetic patient. So can anyone identify what is this lesion? Yes, this is called as a carbuncle. Okay, commonly seen in immunosuppressed individuals, diabetic individuals. So in them you have infection of this posterior part of the nape of the neck skin, and this can lead to ulceration of the skin. All right, so how do you treat this? For the treatment, very simple. You have to take a cruciate incision and you have to drain the pus from it, and you have to incise the necrosed skin. Okay, so remember that cruciate incision has to be taken, drain the pus, and then incise the necrosed skin so that it does not form again. All right. Okay, now this is one of the single most important things, very um, not, I would not say it's a new thing that has started. It's there since the last 10 to 15 years, but it is new in the form of questions. They have started asking questions on this recently only. They have not asked much questions before. So I am expecting that this can come for your exam, and it's something that is used in all the hospitals practically nowadays. Okay, so this is nothing but your WHO surgical safety checklist. Okay, so in your WHO surgical safety checklist, what do you have? So here you have three parts. You have a sign-in part. So before taking the patient inside, you will check whether the identity of the patient is correct. Have you marked the surgical site? Does the patient have any allergies? Have you given antibiotics? Okay. Then there is a timeout or an intra-op part where you will speak to the surgeon and the sister and make sure that from their side the surgical procedure is clear, site is clear. From your side there are no complications in anesthesia, and from the nurse's side all the equipments and instruments are ready. Okay, and then you finally have a sign out time. So you have a sign in, then you have a time out, and you have a sign out time. So in sign out time, the most important thing is you have to make sure that the mop and gauze count is correct. You've not left any instruments or mops, gauze inside the patient's body. Okay, so this is called as the WHO surgical safety checklist, which has to be done for every surgery. All right. Okay, moving on to the next picture. Identify this condition and the associated complication with it. So if you look at this picture, this is called as the Fowler's position, or it is also called as the sitting position. Okay, so in the Fowler's position or the sitting position, the most commonly seen complication is venous air embolism. Okay, so what happens is the cerebral blood pressure is lower as compared to the blood pressure at the level of the heart. So it can entrain air from your open blood vessels. When you're doing neurosurgery, can entrain air. This air can enter into the venous system and go into the heart, and it can cause an air embolism leading to the death of the patient. Okay, so venous air embolism is the most common not most common, but most threatened complication that you see in case of Fowler's position or sitting position. Okay, it is used for shoulder scopies, open shoulder surgeries, and neurosurgeries. So these are a few positions that you need to know. This has been asked previously in both NEET PG and in the FMGE exam. So you have sitting supine position, head is down, that is Trendelenburg position, head is up, that is reverse Trendelenburg position. Okay, then you have this position used in gynac. This is the lithotomy position. High chances of injuring the common peroneal nerve over here. This is a lateral position. The right side is down, so it is also called as the right lateral position. Then here you can see there is a break in the table and the renal area is elevated. So this is called as your kidney position. Okay, same kidney position over here. Here you can see the patient is lying on his abdomen. This is your prone position. In prone position, the most common injuries that you get are eye injuries. And finally, this is your beach chair position. Again, it is used in neurosurgery, shoulder surgeries. So this beach chair position, here you can get, as I told you, venous air embolism. All right. Okay, moving on to a few surgical instruments that they ask in the exam. These are staplers. Okay, so this one is a circular stapler. They will ask you what is the use, in which surgery is it used. So it is used for hemorrhoidectomies. And then this one over here is a linear cutter stapler. Whenever you want to do any kind of resection and anastomosis of the bowel, okay, stomach, intestine, you want to cut through a part and then you want to anastomose the two cut ends, you can use the linear cutter stapler. Okay, all right. Identify this bag. Anyone? Whenever you see markings at the side, 25 ml, 50 ml, 75 ml, 150 ml, that is one thing that will help you identify. And second is, you can see that the tubing is ending at the top. So this is a urine bag. Okay, this is the urine bag. This is connected to a Foley's catheter, and it helps in collection and measurement of urine. On the other hand, you will see a very similar bag, but you will see there are no markings over here. Those are absent, and you can see that this tubing is going right down. Okay, and you see something written over here, underwater drainage system. Okay, so this is nothing but your intercostal drainage bag, ICD bag. It is connected to your chest tube in pneumothorax, pyothorax, hemothorax, all of those conditions. Okay, then these are your stoma bags. So there are two types of stoma bags over here. This one is your colostoma bag. It has a pouch like opening over here. You open it, you empty the stools from it, and then the patient can, the same bag is continued. Okay, and this one, it has a small tubing over here, and this you can connect it to a uro bag. So this is used for collection of urine. So this is actually called as a urostoma bag. Okay, so colostoma bag is used for collection of stools, urostoma bag is used for collection of urine. All right. Okay, next, this is your examination which we do with an ultrasound. So I just mark the 4 areas which where we will keep our ultrasound probe, and this is nothing but fast scan. Okay, focus assessment of sonology in trauma. So here you will keep the ultrasound in these 4 areas, and you will try to identify if there is blood, or if there is any bowel rupture, or if there is any traumatic injury to the organs. Okay. All right. And last instrument that you need to know, this is one of the most commonly used instruments. This is called as a pneumatic compression device. And they may ask you, so what is this pneumatic compression device? What is it used for? So remember, we used to have DVT stockings before, so we have them even now, but this is even better. You can set a pressure, and that pressure will pump the veins of the lower limb, and it will help maintain the venous return from the lower limb to the heart and prevent formation of clots by preventing the venous stasis. Okay, so that is called as pneumatic compression device. It is used to prevent deep vein thrombosis. Okay, so that's it with all the images that we had to do for surgery. I think we've done about 45 images. It has been a very useful session, so don't forget to revise it. I'll just quickly go through all the images again. This is your pneumatic compression device, fast scan, urostoma, colostoma bag. This is your ICD bag, urine bag, circular stapler, linear stapler, different positions used during surgery. Then you have your Fowler's position, WHO surgical safety checklist, carbuncle, cystic hygroma, gynecomastia, Mondor's disease, ulceration of the nipple or Paget's disease, cystosarcoma phylloids, breast abscess, microcalcification seen on mammogram, popcorn calcification per the orange appearance, retraction of the nipple, true cut biopsy and core biopsy needles, parotid swelling, ranula, tram flap, deltopectoral flap, LD flap, CA tongue, esophageal web, then your CA buccal mucosa, submucous fibrosis, Samoma bodies, Pemberton sign, and the different types of crystals seen in urinary stones. All right. So I hope that this session was useful to you guys. If you liked it, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up at the end of it, and I shall see you next time. Till then, take care and keep studying. Bye-bye. If you have any doubts, you guys can message me on this Telegram group, and I will be happy to solve all your doubts. So this is the Telegram group, Let's Crack NEET PG, and you will also get the links to all our free classes over there. Thank you so much.